Excuse Kevin this evening. Is Deb been able to join us? Perfect. Connecting. Okay. We can go ahead and start, and she'll join us as soon as she can. Welcome. Thank you for being here. You have a presentation on the whole child for us, and we are very, very excited. Ready? All right. There we go. I know. Ready? So first, thank you, Board of Directors, Superintendent Dent, for allowing Dr. Larberg and I to present some information tonight on emotional safety. And so before we kick off our presentation, Dr. Larberg is going to do a little announcement about Whole Child Month.
Yes. So today, this month, starting even today, is the Whole Child Month. I just want to remind you of all of January. The next thing that I want you to know is we have been giving out, or I've started with Dr. Dent, giving out this Whole Child Award that you are receiving in front of you. And you really are our heroes as Whole Child champions, making sure that our students learn, and we think about all the pieces of academic and social, emotional, and mental well-being. So it's important to have all those pieces as well as engagement to help our kids succeed. So thank you as our whole child heroes. We also have had staff members nominated, and we had a fun week last week and went and took some pictures with people. And we're going to continue through January going to schools and giving their award for this honor that we think is really important this month.
I have to just say something. It's super fun because Jeannie and I walk into these classrooms and the teachers have no idea why we're there. Yeah. So, and then it's like they're administrators with us, and then other people want to come and like join in the celebration. I think Slater had, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us in his room, Robbie Turley, but it was just a lot of fun. They enjoy it, so great.
So just to kind of like tag off of that, it feels really good to sit on this side of the table and have a board that really supports the work that we're doing. It's so meaningful, and know that we can come here and celebrate and just be excited about the work that's happening. So what you see up there is just a representation of all 5 goals that are in the strategic plan. And so last month you were able to hear a presentation from Josh, Sarah, David around restorative practices, and really the goal 2 and 4 team work a lot together on the things that you see up there, whether it's attendance, it's discipline, restorative practices, our school safety, all of those. But we also wanted to kind of reiterate up there is we have emotional safety kind of spread across all of those goals, because emotional safety impacts everything from the moment those students are walking in our doors, whether they start with us in a preschool program, whether it's kindergarten, and it impacts their education all the way through graduation. And so it's really, it's what we are about as a district. It's the whole child, but know that the work is kind of really braided in with 2-4, but it weaves the tapestry across all of the goals. So again, our promise, I don't know if you can talk about emotional safety without, again, going back to us knowing, valuing, and supporting every single student who walks through our school doors every day. So it's always great to start with that promise and just, to honor those words, every day with what we do. So in the strategic plan, we have a measurement around emotional safety. And so what you see in the strategic plan is by 2026, 100% of students will feel that their school is safe and welcoming. And we do that with a perception survey, right? So one of the things that we had to do as a team is to take a step back and go, how would we measure this? And so what research says is that the best way to measure psychological safety is really using some other various forms of questions. So one that you'll see us in the presentation tonight is, in our school, is there at least one adult who knows and cares about me? So you'll see more like different variances and how we measure that in multiple different ways. So again, equity, we have our equity looks like for each one of our goals. And on this one, the words that really stand out to me is fair treatment, but it's also about personalized support. And so, I think all of us can picture students out there, and what does it mean? We do this tier 1 support for all students, but then there are specific things that we need to do to make sure that every student, has the support that they need in order to, make it through each stage of that educational process. So board policy, there is a plethora of policies that you could go look up. And I know many of these are really familiar because again, they interconnect with goal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and I think as you just look at that list, there's really, I mean, you can see kind of how everything is really woven together. And again, that's what the whole child is all about. So we do have some budget that's set aside for a lot of the things that we do around emotional safety. So they're divided into 2 categories. So the first one is around really the comprehensive counseling. So the first one's Heidi's Promise. You probably recognize that one. That's our intervention specialist. We have those at our secondary buildings. Behavioral health services, that's our district providing through levy funds, which I think Gina will talk about later, about providing services for families, and it's at no cost. So we can serve all of our students. And then there's a small piece in there around supporting our counselors with professional learning and curriculum because they are on the front lines every single day and we need them to be the best that they can be. And then the second area you'll see is around that multi-tiered systems of support. And again, we have some funds dedicated to, purchasing curriculum. We have a data tracking system. There's conferences sometimes. So our total budget there's around $275. Then so for tonight, the big idea is around how are we connected to that promise in developing nurtured, engaged, and empowered students. And so we'll do that the same way we've done our other presentations. We'll use those same 4 PLC questions. And then again, we'll touch on the 4 pillars because that's really important as we look at any goal. Are we making sure that we're, focusing on each one of those areas? But then as board members, when you're out in the community, here's what we want you to walk away with tonight and have you do a little thumbs up, thumbs down at the end. So by the end of tonight, we want you to walk out of here. Are you able to describe some of the systems that we have in place across the district to support students with emotional safety? And then could you also, describe some of the actions that we take within some of those systems? So that's our hope. So the 4 pillars, just as a reminder, because we live this every single day. So we kind of highlighted a few things up there that you'll hear about in the presentation tonight. So under pillar A, that's teaching and learning, our social emotional instruction. So all those little things we do in the classroom in regards to students, feeling like they belong, conflict resolution. Pillar 2 is really around our partnerships with family and the culture. And so I want you to pay attention to for things like what kind of outreach do we have with parents? What kind of training are we providing parents? What does our school-wide positive behavior systems look like? Professional learning for our staff under pillar C is pretty self-explanatory. And then D is really around continuous improvement. It's like looking at survey data and how are we using that to change what's happening in our buildings to get better results. So with that, taking it over to you.
So do you want to keep clicking for me? That'd be great. So what do we really need to know and be able to do? And I'm going to talk about the first outcome around the systems that we're really focusing on. These are systems nationally wide, but it's also the system that our state adheres to. One is our multi-tiered system of support, which came from public health, and that really does help support students' emotional and social and behavioral well-being, which is about emotional safety. And then our comprehensive school counseling program is also interwoven with our MTSS system. So some of you, I think every one of you have seen this diagram before. This gives you an outline of the tiered system for MTSS that is well known through our state as well as across the country. So that all students is key piece here, important for emotional safety. It's some of those strategies you see in the right that we have expectations is going on in the buildings to build that cultural safe environment that the kids want to come to school and feel like they belong and have the safety with that too. The second system that is integrated with our MTSS system is our comprehensive school counseling program. This is actually a clip right off OSPI, and it's really overlaid. And you can see those pieces, tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 again. What are counselors doing? Because it's all about those pieces together, help support our students with their social emotional needs, but also for their behavioral needs and helping them feel safe. So where are we now and how do we know we're there? So from here.
Yeah, so this is so we've taken each one of our goals. And so when you look at this, we have the measurement up there around feeling that our school is safe and welcoming. So in the little bubbles, what we did is we had to start with data, like what was our baseline data? So this number comes from the CEE survey, the Center for Effective I'm gonna,
Educational.
educational effectiveness, thank you, tongue twister there. So we're starting with the baseline of 81%. So then what we did is we just sort of, divided it out. What would it look like to get to 100% in 25, 26? So that's
And
what,
you can see the question underneath it.
oh, yes.
So even though it says, I feel their school is safe and welcoming, one of the indicators of psychological safety is really, do you have an adult as well as physical safety in the class, in the school to go to?
So I wanted to do a comparison. So we had the survey several years ago. We took kind of a gap in there. So the last 2 years, you can see that in 2022, we had roughly 4,700 students take it, and our measurement came in at 79%. And then last year, we had slightly more students. So it's 4th grade through 12th grade with 5,500 students, and it popped up to 81%. So 2% increase. So we're trying to keep around the same time period of taking the CE survey. So we'll be doing it again this April, right after students come back from spring break. So we're thinking, the timing of the school year, doing it the same, so we can really look at what that, data mark, kind of comparing the same, it's consistent.
So continuing on with where we're at now, it's really important for us to see where are we with school counselors. I feel very fortunate. We're in Sumner-Bonney Lake School District, and Erin could probably contest to this. We have counselors at every building. And what I want you to know is those counselors work really hard on their comprehensive school counseling program. And part of that is the needs assessment that has been developed and used. And we changed questions since 2010. That's when Sumner-Bonney Lake started doing a comprehensive school counseling program. However, the state does not fund us fully for every one of those counselors, so we have to use some of that money out of levy money to make sure our schools are covered, because that's the emphasis in our school district is our students counseling. The skills of our counselors, what they do with our kids is so important, not just academic career development, but also social emotional development. So we have an activity for you, and they're in your pink.
Blue, pink.
They all run together
They're
these
close.
days. So pink folder, and we're gonna have an opportunity to have you use these, and we're gonna have you pair up. So Erin and Dr. Dent and Bill and Paul, you're gonna take a moment, and I'm gonna go through each one of these slides before I have you start working. So it's one of those situations where I'm gonna share a little information, and then we're going to come back to that. So Erin and Dr. Dan, if you'll do the first one that says needs assessment safe and welcoming, and then Paul and Bill, if you'll do the next one. If you get done and you want to look at both of them, it's totally fine, but we're just going to do that and then have a share off. So in this first slide, I feel my school is safe and welcoming. So this year, we really tried to use the same wording that is in the strategic plan, because we really wanted to see that question, I feel safe, on the needs assessment always comes out a little different than what the CE data says. So I decided, well, let's try this, see what happens. It's a little more explicit than I feel safe, right? And then the second piece of that is I feel my classroom is safe and welcoming. We chose that because sometimes context may have a difference when kids understand the context as well as who's giving the survey and why they're being given the survey. The next set of data is having that adult. So there's, as you can see, it's very explicit here, unlike the CE data. It really lays out teacher, counselor, coach, paraeducator, some adult that works in that school. And then the second piece is, do you know your school counselor is available for help? The reason a needs assessment is done and why it's so critical for comprehensive school counseling program is they can take action on it, where the CE data does not have individual students. Okay, so let's give yourself a couple minutes and write down some noticings and wonderings, and then if you could talk with your partner, and then we'll have a share out, and let my watch stop. So
Timer.
a timer.
How many minutes do you want to give them?
Would you like 2 or 3 minutes?
Hey, Roger, Deb's trying to get on. Okay.
Hi, Deb.
I'm just trying to learn this on the new laptop, so I've gone in and out a few times. Anyway, thank you for including me. I look forward to kind of hearing all the rest of the information. Thank you.
So Deb, we're looking on, I believe you got the documents around the needs assessment, but you could take a look at those and have your own ponderings or questions.
Okay, thank you. I was trying to look up at the whiteboard and I haven't been able to figure that out on the laptop. So anyway, I'll try to pull up the other.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Or you can just wait until we all share out and might be able to hear some more.
Okay, thanks.
You can, yes.
What you get.
Use your partner.
Oh, we can use our.
So I
Yep, use your
Yeah,
partner.
use your partner
What we're
next.
seeing is the trend, if you look, not exactly number wise, you know, there's a lot of that minus and minus, and then we had the plus.
Oh, it increased it last year.
So both the adults, now the kids were a much bigger jump than the adults. But still there was an increase.
Are these students? These are students taking.
So this is, students are in blue, adults are the green.
No, I think green is 2023 and.
Yeah, it's 2 years.
2022.
This was
So this is student data.
okay, this is
Adults.
students.
But it's just asking about their awareness that they're adults to help. One thing I noticed is that for the upper one, I have an adult at school who can help me if I need it. Decreases from elementary school to high school, but only slightly.
Yeah.
And the reverse is down in the bottom where they're aware of so in elementary school, they're pretty aware, but not as fully aware as the high school. They really know that it's so high. It's marginal.
Well, and I think over the years, we have listened, when we talk to kids, they would tell you that many more say, I'm here or I'm being successful because they can identify that adult. And like you said, down here,
Okay, you ready?
it's just a weird perception for small kids.
They all love their teachers.
Well, yeah, they all do. They all do, you're right.
These are impressive numbers.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Okay, team, you ready? Okay, so first one we have up is sharing out about school and classroom safety. So team one over here, anything that you noticed or wondered when you looked at the data?
Well, we noticed that overall kids feel very safe in our schools and in our classrooms, which is a celebration. Over 90% of kids feel safe in their classroom, which we're wondering if that attributes to the relationships between students and teachers, kind of a little bit more targeted in a way that maybe a whole school couldn't be. And then one of our wonderings was who makes up the kids who fall in that red bar? Are they kids maybe who are new to our community? Are they kids who have been here the whole time? Like what's some information about those kiddos who don't feel safe?
It's a great question. Ready for the next team?
Sure.
All right, so have your graphs up there. So this graph showed 2 years worth of data. So the bars on the left was 2022 and then the next year was 2023. Anything what did you notice? What did you wonder?
Let's piggyback off of what
Yeah.
Erin just
Yeah,
said.
you bet.
Where she questioned about the folks in the red, the students that are in the red. And I do too. I mean, are they just having a bad day? And they're just disgruntled and they mark no for everything? I mean, I've had bad days like that. And so do we have a way to follow up with those students?
It's a great question.
Yeah, we'll get into the action
Okay.
that comes out of needs assessment.
All right, Bill?
We were also looking at the numbers and we were wondering, with those elementary kids, I mean, they all love their teacher for the most part. But when you get up to high school, just the ability to express that there's that one adult, as I've had experience where they can tell you, I mean, no matter what, in the worst of times, you can say, okay, but who's somebody who can help you? And they can instantly name that teacher or that campus safety officer, or, whoever.
Yeah.
I'll just say, I thought these were all very incredibly high.
Mhm.
If you were to ask me as an elementary school student, oh, you have a counselor you can go talk to? No. So
Yeah.
the fact that most
Mhm.
our elementary school students are aware of it is pretty impressive. And the fact that it increases on the bottom graph, you can't see it well, so one of those graphs, it actually increases so that by the time they get to high school, they're more aware that there's a counselor that they can go talk to.
Yeah, and these are 4th and 5th graders in our elementary and then the rest of the grade levels. So yeah, there's some interesting thing. And the one piece that I want you to think about too in the question around safety is working with Seattle Children's. One of the things about that question, when I said, here's my gut, what's the research on this? Some clinical psychologists say it's very difficult to ask a kid if they feel safe, because anxiety is one of those situations where whether it's real or not, they never feel safe. And so I wanted to do a context, because that was one of the pieces I asked, like, is there a context difference if I say school? Or if I said in the lunchroom, if I said in the hall, in the classroom. So this is our first year to kind of really start thinking. Our kids' view of safety is not really what we're thinking it is. And what we think is a measurement of safety in their mind is, I wouldn't feel safe no matter where I was at. But that's why we use a needs assessment, because we can follow up with every one of these kids that said no. Every single kid.
Because we collect student names when the counselors
Yeah.
do the needs assessment, so we know, like, so Paul, if you put down, like, you don't have an adult, you'll see later, like, we know who you are, versus if we only were using data from the CE survey to ask the question, we have no idea. We just know we had blank percentage who answered no. So that's the importance of our counselors doing this work, because it allows us to create action plans and do something about it, and providing that personalized support that a student needs that you saw. I mean, that's our district promise, so.
Well, and I think it fits, if you get a survey from somebody you know, then a survey from Best Buy, you have a different response. Like, oh yeah, I want to give a survey on this learning I just did because Aaron gave it to me. Or if I did a learning with an agency out there, I'm like, I don't have time to do that, right? It's more personal.
Right, it might feel more anonymous.
Yes.
If it's the CEE coming in, I might be a little more honest, right? If it's my
Could be.
teacher or the counselor that I know, usually, I mean, I don't know how personal the students know the counselor, so it still might feel a little bit anonymous. But yeah, if it was my teacher doing it, I would feel like, maybe I'm gonna fudge a few things here, because this might come back to bite me. That's
Yeah,
just me.
and for this, it's the counselor who
Okay.
does it. Okay.
How do we get there?
Yep, and how are we gonna get here? The next question and action. So one of the pieces of the system that we have to do is really evaluate. And the tiered fidelity inventory evaluates our tiered system. And there's components for each tier that has to be evaluated and looked at. And this is done every year. And this is, again, another tiered fidelity for MTSS is a national evaluation. And so what you see on the left are the number of schools, and across the top, 100 to, I can't quite really see that, but I know it's
Like
100.
how they scored.
Yeah, the percentages are across the top. So blue is 81 to 100. And so you see 6 schools, tier 1, and then you can see for tier 2, again, 9 of those schools are between 100 and 81, and then you can also see for tier 3. I have some ideas. Why we have totally increased our tier 2 and tier 3 is because of the tremendous amount of, over the last 3 years, of really focusing on our teens in tier 2 and tier 3, because we have seen increase in behaviors that we want to support those teens. So I could see how that has gone up too. All right. So next is really another piece. When kids feel that there's access to social supports in their building or social supports in their community, it increases kids' feelings of emotional safety. So I want to talk about one of the behavioral health supports. When I say behavioral health, why I say that word is that's the terminology when you're including substance abuse support as well as mental health. So we have prevention and intervention specialists. And in our prevention and intervention specialists, they are not SED therapists. They are specialists to help kids when they have family members who have substance abuse, as well as kids themselves using, and it can also be used for discipline. So you can see that. In the right-hand corner, you'll notice a little star. What I want you to see is in the star is your handout that explains in more detail everything that the next 3 or 4 slides are going to talk about. So Kelly, if you just move to the next one, I want you to just see a little data that helps show perception data. This is anonymous from students who have accessed our PIs. It also shows the total number of contacts and by building. And so those male and female adds up to the total, then it tells which kids fall in each, whether it's discipline or non-discipline. So non-discipline could be a parent referral, it can be a kid themselves comes in, or youth, or it could be a teacher or a counselor. So at the top box, you will see the importance it is for them, as well as, what's the next line? I really cannot see that far.
Oh, do they think that the program was important to them? And then are you glad you participated in the program?
And I should have that memorized.
Yeah.
And then the last one is really key here, I think, also for the goal 2, because part of goal 2 is also the attendance. And so they see an increase, kids feel like they come to school. And I know there's kids out there, because I go to buildings a lot, that go to that PI person, and that is their person. And then in the next slide.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
And this too gets at the graduation goal, because when we look at the students who aren't crossing that line, I know Bill can tell you a lot of students have, there could be some impact with, some type of substance. And so this again is like another, even though this may fall under goal 2, it also is impacting graduation rates at the same time. It's like, it's hard to disconnect, one from the other at times.
Can I ask you a question here? So what I'm understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, in the non-discipline column, these might be people that are reaching out for help for drugs or alcohol or some other kind of.
Or a
issue.
family members.
Or family member,
Or a friend.
but it's not discipline related. In the discipline column, that is a discipline.
Yeah.
They got cut
Okay.
with something
campus.
on campus.
Thank you for the clarification, because when I first saw it, I thought, well, this just tells me that they're not disciplining, they're only
No.
disciplining a third of the people.
Yeah.
And so this is, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always have to clarify, because people think, oh, these are the kids that are going because they had their own use. Sometimes it's not about their own use. It's about the impact that they're having in their family or friend group or stuff.
I'm glad you clarified that, because that clarification makes that
Clear.
really, I think it makes it look fantastic. I mean, that there's almost 200 kids that are seeking help for, that they're aware that they need help.
And that goes to the relationships that the PIs are, what they do in the building when they're out at lunchtime circulating at tables, just trying to build a relationship with kids, and they go into classrooms and do drug and alcohol prevention type lessons. So it's like trying to get them integrated with the staff. So, or with the students and staff. So,
And with that, this is not funded by our state. This is something that we have put emphasis on for quite a few, since I've been here, to really focus on kids that may need some extra support besides their teacher, besides their counselor, besides all those other people in the building.
yeah, this is 100% levy right here.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, when I say school-based, that means these agencies come to our building. We have an MOU. They're free. It does not cost our district anything. They provide mental health services. Specifically, Consejo does provide SUD or substance abuse services and mental health. Again, I talked about the behavioral health, why it's named that, but Catherine's and Multicare, which Catherine has an agency in Puyallup. Multicare is out of Greater Lakes, although it's all of Multicare, their behavioral health staff. They're in those buildings. And then we also have behavioral health services that we have contracts or MOUs with. And the first one that you see on there for virtual or online is the UW Step Care for trauma-informed CBT. And this is for students who've had traumatic events. And what research shows is if they can get this TFCBT, they go on earlier that we can provide it. They go on to maybe not have those other issues as they grow up, PTSD, depression, anxiety, and there's lots of research that's been done with this UW Step Care. We were lucky enough to be one of 2 last year in our school district to be asked to do this opportunity, partly because of our connections with the UW Smart Center. And this year there's 3 schools in Washington State, and this teletherapy on TFCBT is clinical psychologists and social workers that are finishing up their hours to get licensing. So that's an awesome opportunity. And I have lots of stories from families who've called me and said what an impact that has been for them. And then we have Charlie's Health, which again is moderate to mild mental health concerns. And then really excited about this new one called Daybreak Health that we started this week. And again, this is partially funded with levy money as well as students insurance. So everybody who's 10 to 19 can have access. No one's turned away, even if they don't have insurance. And it's up to 12 weeks again around mental health services. And the other piece around our, where we're at really came also from this safety and security task force that Kelly and I got to meet with lots of community members and came up with some recommendation. The first recommendation was around specifically enhancing topics for students and staff. And so that's the big piece of that, and being able to give professional development and learning. And here's some things actions that we've already started. So think of the 2 outcomes. This is part of the action that we're doing that creates that social, emotional, physical, mental safety. So we've done some suicide prevention. Of course, we've done other things in the past, but we also offer this class for our teachers. And then for students, we this year started at both Bone Ring Lake High School, all 10th graders getting this youth first aid mental health course, and it has had such a positive outcome, as well as some delivery of mental health and wellness education at all levels. With every child from 3rd grade up through high school, and then really being strategic this year around our HIV prevention, working with the district to report it on the student dashboard instead of trying to find that in the district, so that when it is reported anonymously, that someone can respond more quickly. As well as working with Brian Shearer. He made new posters for each building, and we went out, and they're big sandwich boards that kids can just QR them and then report a concern. So we're making it more available for people to really let other people know that there's some kind of things. And thank you. And the last one, even though it's not part of the recommendation, we can't forget parents love and need some support in understanding. So we've already provided some of these things. Some of these things we're continuing on throughout the year, but these are the same things that we started last year, and now we're moving on to continuing some of these.
So the second recommendation was really around students. So we had a student on the group in our committee who was just absolutely amazing and just kept advocating around how do students take leadership of creating this culture, this climate in the building. And so the first recommendation that Jeannie shared with you, it really is, a lot of that is being led at the district level, whereas this area is really being handled more at the building level. And so on this slide, you'll see some different activities that are taking place. And then later, when we talk about celebrations, you'll see a lot more specific around what are schools doing with students leading the charge around building that positive school climate, because it's really about students, leading that with other students, whether, it's students opening the door, it's the different activities they might be doing through ASB. And we have a couple mentorship programs that are happening in buildings. Again, Jeannie mentioned the youth first aid mental health, just, having kids being out there on the front lines, supporting, destigmatizing, mental health. And then again, there's just tons of positive activities that you'll see in another slide.
So as we did that data analysis or looked at data and kind of looked at what's going on, I want you to know that this is the action part. What are we doing as counselors? And as you'll see, they meet with every single student who answered no to those specific questions. But they also have lots of other questions related to very specific things of how to follow up with them. Everything from career to academic success skills. But for our presentation, it's really around these pieces, but they meet specifically around not feeling support or not having an adult to help. And they find out, what's going on to support that young person. And then they also help them get a connection as well as activities in the school, helping them set up and be part of community activities. So you can see there's some other things that they do, and of course provide weekly check-ins for kids who are struggling with some of those safety concerns, a lot around feeling a lot of anxiousness coming to school. So just like we did tiered fidelity evaluation, the one piece that I want you to know in the comprehensive school counseling program is we also need to evaluate and we need to show our impact. So we have an activity that we want to do with you. So this is an example of 3 different comprehensive school counseling program year-end results. These year-end results are a requirement for them to show their impact. These are specifically around some pieces that I think is important for this presentation. So what we have given you is a highlighter, and we're going to split a couple of these up. And so you can decide which one you want to use. But if you're using the Maple Lawn one or the Daffodil Elementary one, just read the first, or briefly look through the first 2 to 3 pages. You're going to highlight what you think may help strengthen a student's emotional safety. And then you can also see the one from the middle school. High school's result reports was based on academic success, and they did a lot around graduation and some academic, so it wasn't so much around safety, but I want you to see how these pieces highlight what you're seeing in those reports of things that might help with strengthening students' emotional safety.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. I love it. Kelly's our time. 2 minutes. And Deb, I'm really sorry you can't be here because I have cute little cookies, whole child cookies that I had made. I didn't make them, but bought to have made, that we had before. And they are delicious, by the way.
Well, don't show me, don't hold them up. I'm sure they're wonderful. Is there a way, I'm sorry, I know everybody's working there, but is there a way that I can look at the black or the whiteboard that's behind you? Is there a way, Charmaine, that I can see more specifically what's going on?
Just washed out.
Can Deb not see the screen? Or does
No.
she see?
It's washed out. Yeah. I tried to fix it, but I don't think I can from this end. Oh, I think I got it now. Thank you.
You might have to click on the PowerPoint.
I was gonna say, I know mine too. What's it doing?
I feel like I'm a flight attendant. Okay, we're gonna stay calm and we're just gonna move right on.
That's right.
I feel like it's snowing in kindergarten.
So I think one thing, when you're in the classroom, there's this accountability, right, with SBA scores. And when you're sitting there and you're looking at your data, you're sitting as a staff and you're analyzing it, there's this, you have this ownership around, am I making an impact with students? And so when I look at the work that the counselors are putting together, I mean, this is really them, and it's their proof and them showing like, this is the impact that I'm having with students. And it's important that every staff knows that they have a role. And are they helping to, and that their counselors, right? Are they doing the things to help develop in these measurements around emotional safety, as well as academics, as well as
Career development too.
yeah, so it's amazing to see the counselors showcase their work and then share this with one another, to learn from one another, just the same as teachers are doing around English language arts and mathematics. So it's incredible to see. And when you see all of them laid out across the schools, you just shine. So I don't know if you've had a chance to, are there specific things that you see in there that are related to emotional safety?
These are really
Anything you've
impressive.
highlighted?
I gotta tell you. Do we post these anywhere online?
We post them usually with their school.
Okay.
We are going to do a new showcase at the end of the year that we'll invite everyone to come see, and we're going to do them around the room, because one of the things is not everyone gets to see the work, and I think that's impressive in itself. Like I said, I had Bonnie Lake High School and Sumner High School, which are very similar, but it's really around graduation and 9th grade success skills.
Yeah, the 9th grade on track.
Yeah. One of the things that I think people are not quite as aware is we started this with Dr. Sink in 2010. Not specifically this, but really looking at how counselors make impact. And I know Bill knows, because him and I worked on some of this together. And so our counselors are so much further ahead than a lot of counselors across our state, that people call and say, can you give us what you have done? And so I'm really proud of our counselors that they've reluctantly at times embrace this, but some of them love it, because they're like, people don't know what I do, right? And I'm really trying to make an impact, and yet sometimes things don't work out that way, and it's okay, because it's just like learning, and gosh, I'm gonna revamp this lesson, or I'm gonna redo something. So anything else that you guys can see in there that might be related to safety?
All right.
Anybody?
That's good stuff.
Yeah.
This is a lot. Yeah, it's overwhelming.
It is. Isn't it surprising how much we don't know how much they do? It's so exciting. So what's working well? So these building initiated actions, so we're on that second piece. Like when you walk out of here, what are some of these things that we are really doing in our school district to help facilitate that emotional, physical safety? Is one, these examples came from the principals and the work they're doing, as also as being in the building a lot. I get to see some of these. The picture in the right-hand corner is something that happens at Donald Eisman. Every teacher has this on the door, so they know exactly the consistency and the predictability in a tier 1 strategy is helping kids know what's going to happen, right? So you can do this, or you can do that. You can see there's lots of things on there, which is fabulous. Some, like character trait recognition, is really helping kids to integrate some of those pieces in their life. And next is middle school. There are, of course, some pieces in advisory around expectation and coping and mental health have been a big emphasis in middle school this last, since 2019. Even when we had virtual, we did a lot of lessons in those areas. And of course, the positive greetings at the door and community circles. But I always say, just like when I was in 1980, we always did these community meetings and had those conversations. So it's been around a long time. So they still do those too, as well as relationship activities. And specifically, one building is doing every 6 weeks, rotating their counselor with kids that have need more for specific groups. And one of the things they're using is the Seattle Children FAST, which is for anxiety for those students that seem to have less feeling of safety. And the reason they use that, it's evidence-based. And we were trained with Seattle Children's. If you remember, we had that PALS pilot program for 3 years. And so the training for our counselors even pays off in that way with building initiated actions. And then also in high school, you're going to see some of the same thing in tier 1 strategies. Again, those supportive cultures, building those relationships, getting kids more involved in other activities. Our leadership groups are trying to get kids involved in other things and starting new clubs and all those things. And of course, celebrating them. So these are great celebrations in my mind that we're doing. However, it is a continual process of improvement, and using data in both systems is critical to helping us see where are our gaps and what do we need to do, and make plans and then implement, and again, looking at that. So if I had my
magic wand.
Yes, my magic wand, which I actually say quite often, these are all the things system-wise, because really, to make impact, we have to have these systems. That's what makes those impacts with our kids. And of course, increasing our tiered building teams and helping them become more high functioning, as well as addressing the well-being of students by training our counselors to make sure to be able to, they are our first line of mental health supports. Even our governor says that, even Reichdahl says, you know, our school counselors are our first kind of responders. So let's make sure that we train them well. And then addressing also mental health supports is always, how do we get more services and social supports for kids so that they have access? Because if they know they have access, they have more sense of safety, that there's people out there taking care of them.
And then one thing when I think about this slide though, is like our school district, and that this is such a special place because it's, no matter how good the data is, it's never good enough. It's always, what else can we be doing? And I know this work, you know, falls under the leadership of Dr. Larberg, but that's, I mean, this just is a testament of all the things that you see. It's still like, she's like, but we could do more, but we could do more. And that's really like, whenever I meet with Jeannie, like these are the kind of things that pop up in our conversations around like, but if we could just do this one more thing, or if we could just have this one more mental health provider, or if we could provide this support for families, how much better would we be? And so it's really, it's an honor to work in a place where that is the spirit and the support that we get from the school board to our community to family. So it feels good.
So just want to circle back. You can see how this is all woven in, and all these action items that have been shown tonight really, you know, supports knowing and valuing every child, and also helping them graduate and be successful in life, because that's what we all want. So thank you, and thank you for your time, and appreciate your comments and your feedback. And the last slide is, if you have questions or comments you want to share with us, Kelly and I will be happy to answer or listen.
Thank you. Okay, I have a really kind of small question. What's a school dismissal in elementary?
So the sent,
You or me, or
Tell me more.
or Beth.
yeah, it's really, again, about teaching, right? And so teaching being silent when they're dismissing, and you know what dismissals can be like. Everybody has been in a building with.
So silent dismissal really is that,
Yeah.
can I hear her online? Sorry.
Come on.
Come on over.
Come closer, yeah.
Silent dismissal is at the elementary school is where kids stay in a classroom with their teacher. And then when the parents either come to pick up, they have a number. That number gets flashed up, sent up onto the board in the classroom, and that kid knows that's where they go. Now you can be dismissed and you go. And so bus, you know, number 82 is here, those kids go. So everybody, so you don't have that mad rush out in the hallway at the same time.
Yeah.
Because we're slowly releasing, you know, starting with our walkers, our parent picker uppers and so on. And so A, it's much more organized and systematic, and B, we always know where our kids, because that system collects the data day after day. So we know where kids, it's
And they're not as loud.
yeah, it's true, because again, they are, I mean, you should just see, if you go to one of our schools and watch what happens, it's so seamless in what happens, and the hallways really are, yes, a lot quieter, because, you know, there's not as many kids in the hallway at one time.
It's orderly, like it's
Very
very, like,
orderly.
that's the way that I would describe it. It's not that you know, like the, kind of like the bell rings at the high school and it's just mass, you know, dispersion, you know.
Yeah.
Or keeping
It's like
kids in
it's-
bus lines until they're.
Right,
like,
because they're not going out there till the bus is there. And then if there's a late bus, they get prompted to a place
Sure.
where they all go, and then there's supervision.
Yeah, at a certain
Watch.
time, teachers are off,
Yeah.
and then we have like lines like in a gym where they,
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only thing I'd add is that, because I've experienced this several times, there's also an adult outside, so when the student comes out,
oh, yes.
the adult matches the student to the person picking them up, So that's, so like the kid just
Yep.
doesn't leave class when they
Yes.
see, I mean, and it's like
Yes.
where they go. I mean, there's a
Oh,
real
right, yes.
connection.
Yeah.
Yes, and so that's much easier when we have the adults in the different places. I mean, again, if you've ever seen the pickup lines,
Oh, yeah.
when the driver
Oh, yeah.
picker uppers, it's awesome.
And that
I mean,
too.
yeah, it's just
great.
Or for bus too.
for the buses as well.
Yeah,
We've got
adults
somebody
there.
out there. So there's, yes, there's somebody in each location, but much,
Yeah, that's great.
Again, that consistency and predictability and that, it, you know, it's for everyone, like.
Interesting.
And kids get where they need to go.
Yeah, in an orderly, quick
Once
fashion.
they know they're supposed to be what.
Right, well.
yes.
Very safe manner.
Yes.
In a very
Thanks for
yes.
explaining that. Because I was going to ask the same question, Erin. But yeah, I had never heard of that process before. So thank you.
It's not
Great.
totally silence, but it's very quiet.
Well, way better.
I'd be nervous if any elementary school was ever silent.
Yes.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, you do amazing work, and the counselors and the stuff you guys are doing. One of the things for me is when I look at these numbers and I see, the percentage of kids that maybe don't feel safe or don't recognize. One of the things I really appreciate is the SEL skills being taught to the other students, because one of the things, and having been able to substitute at the elementary, which scared the heck out of me. Those guys are so small. They're so small. But at the middle school and my years at the high school there are a certain percentage of kids that are never going to trust adults, and rightfully so because of their lives. But I've also watched at all three levels where kids have supported other kids. And I've had students tell me flat out, I come to school every day because of this other student, or I've graduated high school because of this student.
Yeah,
In the elementary, it may not be as dramatic, but I've seen little ones who are out playing in the mud and their friend comes over and grabs them and goes, no, you have to go to class now, and those kind of things. So I think having watched the SEL skills being taught and practiced at the elementary and then progressing all the way up, what we see is a small percentage of those kids. I've also seen the middle school and high school kids know when they're at their limits helping their friends, and then they felt comfortable going to get the adults that are needed. So I really appreciate that educational part of it, because as I said, there's a certain percentage that are never going to trust the adults.
yeah,
And rightfully so because of their lives.
Yeah.
But they have somebody.
I love that.
Can I share a quick example, real quick? So, we have regular counselor meetings weekly as well, and one of my students who has pretty severe trauma and she doesn't always regulate well, and she's blown up quite a bit and eloped and all the things. So a couple of weeks ago before break, she was starting to do that, and she visibly did like the rainbow breath, right? And the kids were like, oh, so-and-so, you took a breath. And they clapped, and she was like, yes, I did. And sat down, and we were on our way. But it's exactly what you're talking about, right? Like, she implemented a strategy that she's been taught a lot. The kids recognized, supported her. She regulated, felt accepted, belonging, sat down, and we moved on. I was like, oh my gosh. I wish our counselor had been there to see it,
Yeah.
because it was really a lot of her work, but
That's so awesome.
it was a highlight.
Yeah.
I just have one question and then a comment. When you had the slide up, it was MTS-B evaluation. You had made a comment. This was Jeannie, Dr. Larber.
Yeah.
And the comment was something like, you've seen an increase in behaviors. And so obviously, I now know that just because you say behaviors, that's not necessarily discipline issues.
No.
So could you tell me, versus over the last couple of years, what kinds of increases of behaviors?
So it could be some mental health difficulties with anxiety, depression, mood disorders. It can also be lacking the ability to self-regulate and not having those skills to self-regulate. It can also be kids trying to communicate what they need, but are in situations where they've learned it's okay to physically touch other people or harm other people. And so they use different ways of communication that causes trouble for other people and themselves, in the sense of not accessing their own learning or maybe interfering with somebody else's learning. So the increase actually has been going on, and this is nationally, research-wise, since 2013. We knew this was going to happen too, but also kids also didn't have to really use a lot of social awareness or self-awareness when you're in your home learning. And so you come back to an environment that if you don't have that consistency and predictability and you haven't been taught, it's really teaching these kids, and it takes time. It really takes time. We also have some very students with some very, very complex mental health issues that have multiple diagnoses and have very difficulty being in school. And yet we embrace them and we try to help them and we try to use the best strategies we can. But sometimes they need even more than what we can give. And even though they're getting outside, getting into long-term therapy is a long wait, inpatient, learning those skills, being isolated in with people that can just really one-on-one mental health therapy is very hard to come by. But we have some kids that have pretty complex behaviors sometimes. And what I want to say, I'm so honored to be in this district that our teachers and our administrators are embracing kids and knowing that it's really about them communicating their needs, that it might be just misaligned because or maladaptive way. They don't know any other way to get their needs met. So I think we have seen that, but I've also, because I'm involved with lots of other organizations across our state and the country, that this is a common trend across the whole United States. And we saw this trend coming even in 2013 is what researchers are saying.
Well, my comment is positive. Over this last 8 years I've been here, I've always seen great presentations on social emotional learning. As a parent, when my daughter was in elementary school, I always felt very supported. And I liked what my daughter learned in class around this. Dr. Dent sent all of us the old CE surveys. And I looked up that question, which was, in the school, is there at least one adult who knows and cares about me, right? And back in November 2015, it was 78%. November 2016, 77%. October 2017, 80%. Very consistent to what we're seeing now. And so to me, that it just shows the longevity of what you've been at it, working, and how high it remains. I was heartened by hearing the fact that on the little red areas that had, students that said no, that there is a way to get at those students. And because we've seen in all the academic parts too, when you guys are able to identify students and help provide those services to them and supports, they improve.
Yep.
And so I just thought, 100% by 2026. I hope so. But I know that it's high now. I'm sure it'll continue to grow each year because you guys are strategically targeting people in a good way. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, being very intentional.
Can I just add something else to that as well?
Of course.
It comes from nowhere.
I know you can't see me, but I'm here. Okay, I too was very impressed with the percentage change gradually over the years. And I think that was very impressive. However, what I am even more impressed with is those students, like Paul just mentioned, in the red, that the counselors can go to those students individually and work with them or give at least some resources to their parents if that is the situation as well. And I think that as long as you continue to do that, maybe not in 2026, you'll have 100%, but it's going to be very close to that. So I applaud you all for that. It's pretty inspiring. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Deb. Thanks, Deb.
Just another way that this district is being intentional and laser focused and targeted, and we're just so grateful for your work. So thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It takes all of us.
I know, and you guys are all so awesome. Good work. Thank you. All right, that brings us to board discussion. Anybody have any topics for discussion this evening? Deb, how about let's start with you?
Oh, thanks. I don't really have anything at this time. So I'm good right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Paul and Bill?
I'm good.
I was gonna discuss a little bit about the community circles, but I've decided not to bring it up, other than I'm still mulling it over. I'm trying to do some research on my own. I know practices like that have been going on in this district for a very long time. They do have positive aspects to them. And so I wasn't gonna say anything negative or anything like that, just that I'm still working on it and working through it, so. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Well, with that, thank you again for all your presentation and work and went into this. Good? All right. Very good.
Enjoy your cookies.
I know, they're so cute.
Maybe save one for me.
I will say
No, Deb, I'm gonna take yours.
No.
And Deb, we have a certificate for you also. And
Oh,
Kevin.
thank you.
It has, this is,